In the city of Joburg, water has become a real concern. Soaring utility bills, while leaks flood the streets. A painful contradiction, as there's often no water at home.
I was in complete shock. I've got a bill for 165,000.
Inexplicable billing.
Just to survive, we've had to gather water, rainwater from the gutters.
Crippling outages.
We went 52 days without water.
Joburgers have long inundated our inbox with their complaints. The latest video evidence of interruptions and leaks come from every corner of the metro. Now, it seems, this devastating situation is only part of what's going wrong with the city's water. Despite dealing with leaks and outages, plot twist, Joburg residents now saying that they're literally paying for air. Water takes a long journey to reach every tap. From the Val Dam, it's pumped and made drinkable by Rand Water, who hands it to the municipal company Johannesburg Water to distribute to homes. Households have meters so that the city can bill for what's been used. So why are the users so often without water? It's becoming increasingly clear that there's not enough water for Johannesburg, especially in summer. So Joburg Water applies water shifting, where it switches off water supply to certain areas. For years, water shifting seemed to hit the metro's southern suburbs the hardest. Last year, Lynmeyer suburb had 2 months of outages. Dane Smith struggled, along with all his neighbours.
We went 52 days without water, and we had water tankers that were coming up and down, providing water. It was ridiculously difficult. For the elderly people, it was hard. There was no guarantee as to when we would get water back.
Protests erupted. Dane's community formed a water crisis committee to escalate the issue to the National Department of Water and Sanitation. But now it appears that the outages were not the end of their crisis. With sudden pressure changes in the pipes every time water is switched back on, leaks sprung everywhere. And it's through leaks, like this one, that air enters the piping system. Despite the 2-month outage, Dane's water bill spiked, his meter wildly spinning. So this is the water meter?
Because there was no water in the pipes, air was pushing through into our water meters and turning our water meters extremely quick. I'd love to go to Minister Mchunu and give him an empty water bottle and say to him, please can you give me 20 Rand for this empty water bottle? He'd probably look at me and laugh. But that's the reality. That's what we're paying for. We're paying for air.
If you didn't have water, did your water bill go down?
The water bill was astronomically high.
While Lynmeyer's outage has since been resolved, residents kept sending civil organizations Corruption Watch and Water Can new complaints. Turns out, households may have been paying for air for some time. But constant water shifting made the problem more evident. Water Can Executive Manager Dr. Ferial Adam.
We've heard people talk about air billing. So we have over 80 residents in Johannesburg and over about 40 nationally that are saying that they've had this experience.
There are methods for getting air out of the pipe system after outages, but Dr. Adam says the city is not using them.
They need to bleed the system. So they usually open like a fire hydrant close by to allow the air to get out of the system. And if you're skilled, you know how to do this. But what we have been told is this is not happening.
So not only are the residents expected to foot the bill for air, some bills have gone out of all proportion. Take the case of Shaheen Onya in the central suburb Crosby, whose invoice skyrocketed from 3,000 Rand to a jaw-dropping 165,000 Rand in a month.
I was in complete shock. I've got a bill for 165,000, which shows that I had used 2.1 million liters of water.
With South Africans using on average 235 litres daily, millions are highly implausible.
When I came outside, my water meter was sitting at 7.6 million.
3 months later, in January, Shaheen's bill reached nearly 300,000 Rand. It's yet to be resolved. What did they tell you could be the reason of why your water bill was astronomically high?
The only reason they gave me is a water leak. And when I did call COJ, they came out and had a look at the meter. And they concluded that there isn't a water leak.
Finally, City of Joburg suggested he replace his meter. Naturally, water will follow gravity. So when the water is turned back on, it will start flowing to lower lying areas. And if you live in a high lying area, it might mean that you'll have to wait a little bit longer for your water. But unfortunately, it also causes damage to infrastructure in low lying areas where the water pressure has built up. And that means leaks like this one up the road in Rosettenville on Christina de Oliveira's commute.
This is the community swimming pool, as you can see. This has been leaking since March 2023. Towards the end of last year, they decided to open to find out why it was leaking.
When water is not coming out of your taps, there's still water trickling out of here.
And we have people coming with buckets to come and collect water.
Here?
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
Oh, goodness. In the upscale central suburb of Houghton, water expert Dr. Shan Holmes guided us on a tour of maintenance backlogs.
This one's been like this for over a month. I mean, I think it's a great example of the problem we have, where all the piping is corroded.
The additional pressure from air pushing through already corroded pipes accelerates their degradation.
If the system has been off, there's a huge amount of air that comes into the pipe, so that when it's recommissioned and the water flows through, you've got to get rid of those airlocks. And those airlocks get driven through the little impeller on your water meter. So it can go very rapidly.
The air pressure frequently causes the water meter to spin even faster than it would with water flowing through it. Joburg Water clearly has much to answer for. Gugulethu Quma is operations manager. Despite expert warnings about water shifting's damage to infrastructure, Quma claims the system is protected against pressure surges, and he says air in the pipes is uncommon.
I will call it maybe there's isolated incident, maybe the meter itself is also faulty. There must be some form of testing, and Johannesburg Water and COJ specifically, they have platforms now to investigate those meters.
So do we have a case of many faulty meters then across Johannesburg? Because we've got numerous complaints of people saying this independently of one another.
We cannot rule it out because it's a new phenomenon. We haven't been throttling the systems before, but now we've got high demand challenges that forces us to do unconventional responses to the system.
Quma's solution? If customers suspect they have a faulty water meter, document the problem and request a new one. Joburg Water say they need 2 billion rands a year to renew water infrastructure. This year's current budget will only give them 1 billion rand. Joburg Water only gets half of the money they need for infrastructure maintenance and renewal. And essentially that means every year we have more to fix, but with less money. Years of under-budgeting have added up to a staggering 24 billion rand backlog in infrastructure upgrades.
There doesn't seem to be a systematized plan of pipe replacements. What we're seeing is a constant digging up, a constant repair job that doesn't work, and that must be costing the city millions, if not billions, per annum, just in repairs that at the end of the day don't matter.
So, what rating out of 10 would Kuma give Johannesburg Water?
Let's give ourselves at least between 7 and 8. There's millions of residents, they receive potable water on a daily basis.
At least an 8? Yeah.
To my understanding,
Are you sure?
It is a fair judgment based on our system.
If I had to go to Linmeyer now and speak to those residents who didn't have water for 52 days and were chasing water trucks, you would not be on the scale. I don't want to take your 8 away from you. They might give you 8, yes. But in other areas, people would disagree very strongly with that rating.
8 will fit in certain areas.
And 2 and 3 in other areas.
Let's say under 5, because
Yes.
it's unacceptable anyway.
Agreed.
Water shifting is set to continue for the foreseeable future. In an effort to plan for the influx of people to Joburg, the government secured more water from our neighbor, Lesotho, but that life-saving deal is a decade behind schedule.
The planning for Joburg's future hinges on the Lesotho Highlands Water Project. Its critical phase 2 was supposed to be concluded in 2019, but it only started last year. Water and Sanitation Minister Senzo Mchunu says its estimated completion date is 2027.
Until then, it seems residents of this world-class African city may have to get used to feeling more than a little dehydrated, or may have to get used to paying for air.